Hello and welcome to the Automedics show, reaching you from the studios of NTA2 Victoria Island, Lagos, Nigeria. My name is Ben and I have Ibrahim here with me today. Good morning to you, Ibrahim.
Good morning.
And together we'll be taking the show, answering some questions from viewers out there. And if you have any questions, start preparing them right now, because when we come back, we'll be giving you the topic of the day and also taking your calls relating to problems that you may be having with your vehicle. And the numbers you'll be calling at that time will be 0701 627 2025. 0701 627 2025. Don't go away, we'll be back shortly.
You know that you can actually drive your vehicle without engine oil for 50 kilometers. This is very, very achievable, all thanks to Polytron. Still a doubting Thomas? Let our technician prove this to you.
We are about to drain the engine oil of this car to see the power of Polytron, the product that has nanotechnology buried in it, because we believe that Polytron is already working in it. And after doing that, put the car together and we'll drive it around.
Now that you have seen the power of Polytron, buy a bottle today to increase the lifespan of your engine, reduce fuel consumption, save cost also on expensive repairs.
Strong communication skills, good diagnostic skills, problem-solving skills, solid work ethics, strong technical aptitude, and up-to-date technology. Watch Automedics on your reach-out station as we provide clear-cut solutions to your automobile problems. Automedics, showing every Wednesday at 11:30 a.m. with a repeat broadcast at 11:30 a.m. on Saturdays. Automedics, the best hands on your automobile.
Your topical issue. The number you'll be calling 0701 627 2025. 0701 627 2025. And today what we'll be discussing is emission control systems. Now, Ibrahim, when we say vehicle emission systems, now for a lot of people will be confused, like what is actually vehicle emission system? Can you give us a definition of what vehicle emission system is?
All right. We should probably take it from what would have resulted to the emission.
Yeah.
Basically, when we say emission, it's more or less like talking about what comes out from the engine.
Yeah.
Every car would always have an exhaust coming out. That's why you have the exhaust pipe at the tail end of the vehicle.
Yeah.
For an enthusiast who wants to trace where this pipe has come from, it definitely has come from the engine,
yeah,
which means the fuel going into the engine and likewise the air going into the engine to burn,
yeah,
would always give out a product.
Okay.
The product now is what makes up the exhaust.
Okay.
But now new products have been formed. Part of what is being formed is water, and that's why sometimes when you get to start your car, when the temperature is cold,
yeah,
you get to see that it's you will see some form of condensation,
yeah,
and that's why people will tell you my car is steaming.
Yeah, the engine is okay. That is what a lot of people think.
It's because one of the products of the burning of that fuel is water.
Okay.
Another product is carbon dioxide, which is more or less like what we also breathe out.
Yeah.
But aside from these two, which are supposed to be the only product, you also have some other things coming with them. One of them is carbon monoxide, one of them is carbon monoxide, one of them is oxides of nitrogen and the likes, to use some of those terms. But some of these things are not good for the environment.
Yeah.
So they are termed emission products,
yeah,
and these also come with the burning of the fuel coming out of the car. And because they're not good for the environment, every manufacturer tends to put things that would limit the production of some of these products out of the vehicle. And those things that are meant to limit them are what we call the emission control system, placed on the vehicle at different locations so as to control those gases.
Okay, now when you say the vehicle manufacturer actually put these things in place, because I'm just wondering, is it that the vehicle manufacturers on their own willingly actually put these systems in place?
No, they did not do this willingly, because we would all know that at a point in time we used to have the carburetor, and later every manufacturer phased out carburetor, not because they wanted to phase it out, because carburetor was doing the job of providing power for the engine, and fuel was actually going into the engine. But because cars that uses more of this mechanical system were producing more emission, so and this emission was harmful to the environment, and that's why you hear a lot about climate change. You hear a whole lot about the depletion of the ozone. So regulatory authorities are to kick in so as to protect the environment, also protect the life and protect life of both plants and animals. So manufacturer or regulators came in and they started giving certain standards that every car manufacturer must have in them, and that was why you saw that at a point in time carburetor was phased out. At another point in time, what we used to know as distributor, you can't find them any longer on the car. It's because manufacturers are now working towards a certain limit for some of these emissions, and they can't do this having mechanical system, because regulatory authorities would not allow the car to be sold on some of their soils if you do not meet certain conditions. So it was not something willingly that was willingly done by manufacturers, but because they are meant to meet certain regulations, so they had to comply by them.
Well, which means there was a legislation that actually led to the manufacturers adopting some of this emission control system. Now, the emission control devices, how many of the devices do we actually have?
Well, depending on the car, we could have about 5 to 6 type of emission control device situated at different locations of the car. So depending on how sophisticated the car is, because as more car comes, more improvements also come with them, and that's why you even see many of them not having much weight, because the more the weight of the car, also the more fuel it's going to consume, and also the more the emission that will come out. So when we talk of the numbers, it depends on how sophisticated the car is. But yes, we will talk about the ones that are much more general to every vehicle and what they do, because many a times car owners don't know about them, and that's why when you get to the mechanic workshop, they just tell you, now this is what it is complaining of. So you don't need to bother yourself. It does not concern the engine. But today we'll probably tell you how it concerns the engine and also the performance of your vehicle.
I think we need to have at least some of the few emission control devices that are on the vehicle that are very critical to the running of the vehicle and also the environment.
All right, one of them is the one we call the EVAP. There have been instances where customer would complain that, whenever I buy fuel, my car would not start. Or sometimes I even find it difficult to buy fuel. It's because there is a system that is on the car that is meant to take care of fuel vapor.
Now I think I remember one question that was asked some time ago. I think this will also be beneficial to our viewers out there. A client said that each time he gets to the gas station to buy petrol, he can't use the nozzle. So all he does most time is to buy it in a jerry can and then dispense it using a hose.
Well, that's not a normal condition, though many a times this would happen when the emission control device that was supposed to take care of this is faulty. But in understanding how the EVAP system works, it's just like an example when you buy fuel in a jerry can and you leave it for some days, you would observe that the jerry can would have swollen,
grown bigger.
And the moment you open it up, you got to see some gush of vapor coming out. That same thing would have happened inside the tank. So something is meant to take care of that fuel vapor. On older systems, when you look at the fuel cap, you would see that it always have more or less like a spring, so that when the vapor inside the tank is much, it gets to push that spring, so it vets fuel vapor into the environment, which is not good. But on today's car, you could even see a car that does not have a fuel filler cap. So you would just see that once you open where you would buy the fuel, you just see there is no cover here. Some of them are designed not to have cover, and with it not having cover does not mean that what you have inside the tank would escape outside, because there is a system that is meant to take care of that fuel vapor. It takes the fuel vapor off the tank. Instead of giving it out to the environment, it takes it into the engine so that fuel vapor would eventually burn. And this would have helped you to save fuel. Because now the fuel vapor no longer goes out. It's not been lost. It now goes into the engine. And once it goes into the engine, the computer will reduce the amount of fuel it is going to give to the engine, because it knows that there is a fuel vapor that is being doled into the engine from another source. So that's for the EVAP system. It is meant to take care of fuel vapor, and that's why you always hear things like charcoal canister from your mechanic sometimes. That system is meant to hold the vapor till the time the computer wants it to go into the engine.
Now, before we go to another system, now, is there any driver habits sort of that can actually cause damage to the EVAP system?
Yes, there are so many of them. One of them is when people start to buy fuel more than what they should buy. For example,
I mean, you need to break this down.
Yes,
I get to the gas station and I want to buy fuel. Is it too much? How can I buy fuel that is too much?
Yes, there are ways that one could buy fuel that is too much or that is not meant to be held by the tank.
Okay.
One of those things is when you buy in a full tank, for example, at a point in time, the nozzle would click and it would just shut itself off.
Yeah.
At the moment the nozzle shuts itself off, the best is always to stop buying fuel at that point in time.
Okay.
Because you're not meant to fill the whole tank. You need to leave space for expansion and also space for vapor, so that whenever you keep driving the car and more vapor keeps formed inside the tank, those spaces will be left for the vapor and also the expansion of the tank, because as you also drive the car, the temperature of the fuel would also increase. So this would allow for expansion. But when you tell probably the attendant to keep putting more fuel, no, it is not yet full, I need to buy into the reserve. Those reserve you are buying into, it's more or less like transferring fuel from the tank into the charcoal canister.
Yeah, I need to know about this reserve because people will tell you that my fuel is in reserve and all that, and just like you mentioned, they go to buy fuel. Most especially when you have scarcity of petrol, people will be shaking the vehicle, until it gets into the reserve. That is what they say, and then it can take more fuel.
Well, the truth is, there is no reserve anywhere. You're only buying it into the charcoal canister, and the charcoal canister is not meant to hold liquid fuel.
Okay.
The moment liquid first starts to get into the charcoal canister, then you will start to see complaints like the check engine light would come on because because the charcoal canister could no longer hold the vapor would be so much in the tank that the moment you open the tank, you just see a gush of fuel vapor, and sometimes you find it very difficult to buy fuel when such situation arises. So we are not expected to say, oh, you need to buy into the reserve. The moment the fuel, the nozzle clicks while buying fuel, that's always the best time to stop buying fuel. The remaining space at that point in time should be left for expansion so that fuel does not escape into the charcoal canister and damage the system.
Okay, so this is one of the driver habits that can actually cause problem for the EVAP system, right? Okay, now let's look at another system again in the emission control system. One other system, like the catalytic converter. I think it's very common now that most cars, let me just say 98% of vehicles have a catalytic converter.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the catalytic converter is another emission control device. What it does is it helps that whatever is coming out of the engine before it goes into the environment has been treated. So many a times what we have is it's a catalyst, and many a times these catalysts are not meant to be taken off the car.
Okay, Ibrahim, before we talk about the catalytic converter and all of its other components, we'll go on a very short break. Please don't go away. We'll be back shortly.
Drive your vehicle without engine oil for 50 kilometers. This is very, very achievable, all thanks to Polytron. Still a doubting Thomas? Let our technician prove this to you.
We are about to drain the engine oil of this car to see the power of Polytron, the product that has nanotechnology buried in it, because we believe that Polytron is already working in it. And after doing that, put the car together and we'll drive it around.
Now that you have seen the power of Polytron, buy a bottle today to increase the lifespan of your engine, reduce fuel consumption, save cost also on expensive repairs.
Strong communication skills, good diagnostic skills, problem-solving skills, solid work ethics, strong technical aptitude, and up-to-date technology. Watch Automedics on your reach-out station as we provide clear-cut solutions to your automobile problems. Automedics, showing every Wednesday at 11:30 a.m. with a repeat broadcast at 11:30 a.m. on Saturdays. Automedics, the best hands on your automobile.
Welcome back. You're still on to the Automedics show on NTA2 Lagos Network Center. And also you can watch Automedics show is streaming live right now on the Facebook/NTA2 Network, Victoria Island Network Center. You can watch the program live as it's streaming. Now, Ibrahim, we're talking about emission control, and now we're talking about the catalytic converter. I've heard so many things about the catalytic converter, you know, cases whereby the honeycomb inside, there are several names that the mechanics call them, and several uses for it. You know, sometimes they get stolen, knocked off, and so, or, you know. So what is this thing about the catalytic converter?
Well, as we have said, it is an emission control device that is meant to make sure your car burns clean.
Yeah.
And the way it does its work is it works on the exhaust.
Okay.
So that as the exhaust gas flows over it, whichever one is the exhaust, the emission gas, like the carbon monoxide and also the carbon monoxide and also the hydrocarbon passing through it, it makes sure that before it leaves the car, it is a product. It will be turned into a product that is
harmless,
relatively friendly to the environment, just like the carbon dioxide. Now, carbon monoxide being turned into carbon dioxide. I think we need to throw more light on what carbon monoxide really means. There have been times where we heard that some people put on the generator and the next day they met them dead. One of those things that has happened is because part of what the generator was producing is carbon monoxide, and the moment one starts to breathe in carbon monoxide, it's very dangerous to the health of man. And which means, and you can see the number of cars we have on the roads. Which means the moment you start having more of these, dizziness will start to set in for everybody around the environment, because we have a lot of carbon monoxide in the environment. And likewise, you will start to have the effects coming down to everybody on the street. So which means taking off the catalyst is not always a good idea. Even when it is faulty, yes, there are times that the claim the mechanic would say is, it is blocked. It's not making the car to perform very well. Yes, the catalytic converter could get clogged. Sometimes the catalytic converter could also go bad. So the right thing to do is always to replace it with a good one, not to knock it off and say, guy, your car would work. Just be driving it like that. It no good stop. No, this is not good for the environment.
You see, one of the major problems is that because people don't really know about these things, or probably like, okay, I just want the vehicle moving without recourse to what effect it has on the environment, to animal and man. So I think this is something that we should be taken seriously, right? Anything that has to do with emission. So we've talked about the EVAP system, that is the evaporative emission control system. We've talked about the catalytic system. Now, before we go to another system, the catalyst also has some other sensors that works with it and all that. What are these sensors and what they actually do?
Yes, just before and after the catalyst, there is a sensor called the oxygen sensor.
Okay. I think the ones the mechanics sometimes call exhaust heater, right?
Yes, they call it exhaust heater. I think I've also heard them call it exhaust plug. Truly, it looks like plug. But yes, the right name is the oxygen sensor. So the oxygen sensor is another emission control device on the car. Because one of those things it does is, this would even talk about your pocket. One of those things that helps to manage fuel on the car is the oxygen sensor. And all we're saying is same things that would have emanated from the fuel. So if, for example, the car is using too much fuel, it's going to make, that means your car is consuming fuel. It simply means that the rate at which carbon monoxide will be produced on the car, on the exhaust, will be so much. And likewise, the car would not burn clean, and also the performance of the car would not be very good. So one of those things that the computer uses to know the amount of fuel that it does into the engine is the oxygen sensor. And that is why it is another important sensor that helps to monitor emission. Aside from monitoring emission, it is also that sensor that helps to determine how far your car would consume fuel.
So which means if you have a problem with your oxygen sensor,
definitely fuel consumption would also be
and that means your
high.
pocket.
Of course.
All right. Now let's look at another system again, because we have so many emission control systems. The PCV.
Positive crankcase ventilation. Well, if you want to describe the PCV, I think this is the easiest way you would know it. There sometimes you would see some cabs. Then you just see that as the cab is moving, oil is always dropping. And you see that oil will continue to drop as long as that car continues to move. The PCV is just like a window for the engine. And many a times you see people blocking it off, and the moment they start to block it off, it starts to damage other things on the car. So it's meant to release pressure around the crankcase area, as we call it. That's the engine area where you have the crankshaft, where you have the camshaft, and also the internal parts of the engine. Let's put it like that. So it is meant to ease them from pressure and take whatever has escaped into them back into the engine, so that they can easily burn and also go out of the vehicle very clean. But the moment the PCV started having problem, it could cause that the car will start to smoke.
Yeah.
And yes, the smoke would always be an oil smoke. That's the bluish white smoke, as people would always see on the car.
Yeah.
And sometimes it is not even because the ring is bad or because the valve is bad. It could just be because of the PCV that has been abused. So this system is meant to help take care of all this, so that oil does not get into the environment, and also oil does not get into the combustion chamber.
Now, okay, the PCV system now, are there ways you could be able to tell, okay, if it's a PCV related problem or an engine wear related problem?
Yes, there are several ways.
Okay.
One of those ways you would know if it is a PCV related problem or an engine related problem is the moment the technician starts to take out the air duct, that's more or less like the passages of air.
Yeah.
There's a likelihood that you start to see traces of oil on those parts.
Yeah.
When you see traces of oil on those parts, then it is a PCV related.
Okay.
Or probably the mechanic or technician needs to work on your car and is taking out the manifold.
Yeah.
And the moment he took out the manifold, he saws loads of oil in the manifold.
gallon
That's
of oil
the
in
inlet
the manifold.
manifold. It is not meant to be there.
Yeah.
It's just simply because the PCV is bad, and it is making the vacuum in the manifold to draw a whole lot of oil from the floor. And many a time, if it is a PCV related fault, it doesn't really affect the performance of the vehicle, unlike when it is a ring related fault.
Okay, we have a limited time, but we won't go until we just mention this part of emission control device, the EGR system.
Yes, sometimes you would see pipe coming from the exhaust down into the inlet manifold, though
Yeah.
the technician might be someone who would understand this better.
Yeah.
Those pipes are meant to take some of the exhaust you have back into the engine so that they can reburn. That's what they call them. So that they can reburn into the engine. The ER system is another way of reducing emission, because there are certain emission, like for example, the oxides of nitrogen.
Yeah.
It is always favored whenever the engine is going so hot.
Yeah.
For example, when you have overheating on the car, you always hear a particular sound that comes with the car. That's a pinging sound.
Yeah.
And that pinging sound is as a result of the high temperature inside the engine,
Yeah.
which is producing another emission gas, which is the oxide of nitrogen.
Yeah.
That would always cause an acid rain. And many a times you always feel that whenever a car passes by you, you're always feeling that your eye is looking pepperish.
Yeah.
It's because that car is producing a whole lot of oxides of nitrogen.
Yeah.
One of what would cause that is when the temperature of the engine is so high. And the EGR, that's the exhaust gas recirculation system, is meant to take care of such.
Okay. Now, can there be, because if I'm talking about a system, I also look at ways people can actually abuse such systems.
Well, there are several ways people have abused emission control systems, even the PCV, and one of them is taking them off.
Yeah.
Yes, many a times when you take them off on some vehicles, it doesn't affect performance.
Yeah.
But many a time it's going to make the check engine light to come on. It's also going to make the vehicle not to manage fuel better.
Yeah.
And on recent cars, once you take them off, the car might not even operate very well. It might not perform because the vehicle has been seen to violate emission rule, and violating the emission rule would not make them to perform very well.
Ibrahim,
Hello?
hello, good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Welcome to Automedics.
I just want to find out whether that PCB mentioned now, whether it's found in Keke, whether Keke has this.
Okay, just keep watching. We'll just discuss about it briefly.
Okay.
All right. Well, from what I understand from a PCV, no matter what kind of engine it is, it definitely will have a PCV.
Except
Now,
if it is a two-stroke.
even
engine.
if it's a two-stroke, you will see a small pipe from the valve cover area going into the air filter area. That is the PCV. Because the engine must definitely breathe. If it doesn't breathe, then the engine is going to build a whole lot of pressure inside the crankcase. And that is, okay, it's talking about a Keke now. Let's look at two-stroke. You find a situation whereby sometimes the oil seal blow or pulls up and the engine doesn't start anymore. What has caused it? Because there's too much build-up of pressure inside the crankcase. It's looking for the weakest link to escape, and then it blows the seal. Definitely, every engine will have a PCV. Well, unfortunately, we don't have much time to discuss these systems anymore. But I know from now, you know what emission control devices are and the systems, what they actually do. Please don't take them away. And the reason why you shouldn't, because it's going to cost you a lot of money, because if you take the emission control devices, any of them off, you're going to burn more petrol. And also, care for the environment. We need fresh air anywhere we go, everywhere we go. So if you also try to manage how your vehicle burn fuel, you also save the environment. The focus globally has to do with zero emission, and that is why electric vehicles are coming in, hybrid vehicles and all that. Last week we discussed about hybrid vehicles and all that. So please, if you have any vehicle that has any issue, the best thing to do is to take it to your technician, find out exactly what the problems are, because there will definitely be an MIL that will come on the dashboard, check engine, service engine SU, or any of those sorts of light will come on. Don't drive your vehicle the moment you see any warning light on the dashboard. Ensure you take it to your technician to check it. Thank you very much, Ibrahim. And until we come your way again, do have a blessed day.